Hey everyone. So we have learned how to control the flow of our program using conditions and loops. Now let's learn one of the most important concepts in JavaScript, functions. A function is a reusable block of code designed to perform a specific task. Think of it as like a machine. You give it some input, it processes the input and returns an output. Let's see how we can create a function. So first we have function declaration. The most common way to create a function is using function declaration. In this example, we have add as the function name and we have a and b as the parameters, and we have a return statement that return back to the place where the function has been called. So for example, we do a console log and we call that function and we get the output as 5. So here 2 and 3 are the arguments and the function adds them together and returns the result 5. Before moving forward, let's understand parameters versus argument. Parameters are variables written in a function definition. For example, a and b are the parameters and arguments are the actual value passed while calling the function. So 2 and 3 are the arguments. A simple way to remember it is parameter receives the value, argument provides the value. After function declaration, we have function expression. A function can also be stored inside a variable. This is called function expression. In this example, function doesn't have a name. Instead, it's assigned to a variable multiply and we call it using the variable name. If we do a console log, we'll get the output as 6. Sometimes a function may be called without providing all the arguments. Default parameters let us specify a default value. In this example, we have a default argument which is name equal to guest. When no argument is passed, JavaScript uses the default value. If an argument is provided, it replaces the default value. So the output of this will be hello guest and hello Rajat respectively. Apart from default parameters, we have return value. A function doesn't always return something, but if you don't explicitly return a value, JavaScript automatically returns undefined. In this example, since this function is not returning anything, this result will be undefined. And if we check the console, we get the result as undefined. ES6 introduced a short way to write function, which is arrow function. Now let's compare both the syntax. If you see a normal function and arrow function, we don't need to specify the function keyword and we use this syntax to create the arrow function. Both the function do the same thing, but arrow function simply uses a shorter syntax. If the function contains only one expression, the result is returned automatically. This is called implicit return. Now syntax look more cleaner. Although arrow function looks similar to normal function, there is one important difference. Arrow function don't have their own this keyword. They inherit this keyword from the surrounding scope. For example, in the normal function, this refers to the object itself. So this value becomes 10. But arrow function don't create their own this. They inherit it from the surrounding scope, which is not an object. That's why this value will return undefined. And if we look at the console, we get the output 10 and undefined respectively. A simple rule to remember is use normal function for object methods when you need this. Next, we have higher order functions. A higher order function is simply a function that takes another function as argument, return a function, or does both. Let's understand both the cases. Here, greet accepts another function called formatter. The function we passed as an argument is called callback function. As we can see, first argument we are passing as name and second we are providing the shout function and it returns the respective value. For this case, it returns the uppercase for the name. Then we have function returning another function. In this example, we call multiplier2. It returns a new function that remembers the value of factor. And the return function multiplies any number by 2. So 55 will return 10. And if we run this, we will get the output as 10. Apart from the higher order function, we have the concept of immediate invoked function. Immediately invoked function expression is a function that executes immediately after it is created. So this is the example of immediately invoked function. An immediately invoked function creates its own scope, so variable declared inside it does not affect outside code. In our example, variable message only exists inside this function. Before let and const were introduced, these functions were commonly used to avoid polluting the global scope. Nowadays, they are used less often, but you will find them in older JavaScript code base and interview questions. And that's it for this video. Thank you for watching.